on one day.
I thought I would show you what my gardens look like through the course of the summer. So this is April the 12th, after I cleaned out the front bed and got rid of a whole bunch of daffodils, and I covered up these plants that the deer really like. They like to chew them up, and I don't know what they are, but they must be good because the deer always pick those specific plants out. And because it's been so wet and rainy and muddy, and this particular bed was so weedy, I just covered it with weed block and cut some holes in it and planted my butternut squash. So let's see what happens by the end of the summer. And then over here, so far I've planted 2 tomato plants that I got at the ISD plant sale. I have not planted the other tomatoes yet, but I will. I'm getting them from my mother's greenhouse. I've planted beans there by the bean tower in the mud, so I do not have high hopes for them. And that little mound is some yellow zucchini, some summer squash. There are the strawberries that will have to be covered up yet again tomorrow night because we're expecting hopefully just one more frost. There are my onions, the little guys, right there. And the garlic, the tall stuff, that gets harvested in July. And as you can see, I'm missing 3 tomato plants. And that mound back there is yellow squash. And then there'll be basil in between everything. And here we have a very long bean tower or fence, whatever you call it. And 3 mounds that are going to be patty pan squash. And in here we have onions around the perimeter and some little baby kale. Over there are some very weedy raspberries. I really need to do some work over there. So let's see what happens. Well, we are back, and it only drizzled a little bit on the way from Kansas, so didn't have to worry about much rain on the drive. But now that we're home, it's starting to drizzle, so I may not get to mow my really long grass tonight like I was hoping, and I have to go to work tomorrow, so it's going to grow some more. The raspberries are coming right along. There are a few lilacs over there, so it looks like those are beginning to bloom. I wonder if you can hear me squishing around out here in on the north side of my property. So I won't be mowing down here, but maybe I can get some mowed up a little on higher ground. And the kale that was barely starting is now looking great. And all those carrots are coming up. So looks like on the weekend or maybe after work this week, I'll be doing some weeding, but things are growing. Very exciting. Looks like maybe my butternut squash are going to be okay after all. That's very exciting. Oh, and there's a few beans that sprouted in the mud, not too many. But my summer squash, they grew a lot while I was gone. That is very exciting. And my tomatoes look great. And look at all the strawberries. They're not ripe yet, but they will be, and they're looking really happy. So all our hard work paid off last fall, Mom, when we ripped everything out and put in this weed block. There are lots of plants growing in the front bed. Some are weeds, but many are going to be flowers. And the deer only ate 1 lily that I can tell. The rest are still getting ready to bloom, so we'll see what they do with that. The catmint is blooming. Remember the plants that came in the mail one day that I planted on my video? The creeping phlox are blooming. Everything looks great except the grasses back there. I don't know if they're going to survive, but the coleus look healthy. and the phlox are blooming. And there's my giant rhubarb. I'm beginning to think that this plant that I'm carefully protecting from the deer might actually be a weed. Does anybody out there know what that is? Please tell me it's a beautiful flower. All right, I mowed as much as I could. Part of it I can't mow because it's a swamp. And my neighbor told me that our Amish neighbor thinks I have a spring, a natural spring in my yard, which is actually possibly true because it is always a sponge here in this part of the yard. And that part over there used to be grass, and then I quit mowing it a few years ago because I don't need all this lawn. Oh, and somebody's shooting off a gun. That makes me nervous around here. I don't know what they're doing. Okay, before I left for Kansas, I was FaceTiming with my niece, Cheyenne, and I put the phone up to this nest, and she saw some blue eggs in there. So now look what's here now that we got home. I hope you can see the baby birds.
Now I'm done.
Okay.